As a parent, you've been told that more is better. More therapies, more specialists, more interventions, and you're running around from appointment to appointment, speech therapy and feeding and behavioral interventions, and you're doing all these things and maybe even adding in supplements or detoxes or diet changes too. But the heartbreaking truth is you're just doing all that, but you feel stuck. You're investing all this time and energy into your kid's health, but you feel like progress is stalling out, or maybe it's not even going at all. The heartbreaking truth that most parents don't know and providers won't share is that your child probably doesn't need more therapies. They need less. You can't add those therapies in when you have a cracked foundation. When that foundation of development isn't right, you're going to create more harm than good by adding in too much. That's what I want to explain in this video. I want to really walk through at a basic surface level understanding how so many of our kids need to scale back to move forward. And even want to use one of the examples of one of the families and kids in our practice to show that. So let's get into that. We're going to walk through the hierarchy of neurological development. I'm going to explain this triangle or this pyramid here and use the analogy of a foundation or a house to make it make sense, right? You probably can understand it from that perspective of you can't remodel a house. You can't build up on a house when the foundation is cracked. When you have that basic understanding of you can't build on a cracked foundation, this starts to make sense. That is what's going on when we're adding in these therapies. When we think about development from a neurological perspective, the foundation, the base of that triangle is the nervous system. It's specifically the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system regulates every single thing in your body. It is your gut and your digestion and your immune system function, and your sleep and your emotional regulation. All of that behind the scenes automatic function takes place without you thinking about it. That's the ANS, and there's two different modes you got. You got the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. That's what you'll hear us call, it's actually the poster behind me here, you'll hear us call it the gas pedal versus the brake pedal. That is explaining how your body can operate in these two different settings. Survival mode, that gas pedal, fight or flight and stress mode, or growth and development, the brakes, the parasympathetic tone. And the balance in between those is really everything. So many of our kids are stuck in that survival or gas pedal mode, and that's like the foundation is off. You can change the paint. You can put in new furniture. You can put some more WD-40 on the hinges in the door. The problems are still going to remain because it's at a deeper, more locked in level than just that superficial top of the list. So we've got to address the deeper things first. And instead of doing more, that sometimes means you have to do less. Before we get to that though, what can create that problem, right? Why can that foundation be thrown off or be affected so early in life? That's what we call the perfect storm. The perfect storm is the story of why we have so many kids stuck in that stress or survival mode, honestly, from day one or even before day one. That can start in the preconception period and in through the pregnancy, right? When mom or dad is in that survival, fight or flight, stressed out state, when there's more uncertainty in pregnancy, that means that your nervous system is hardwired for survival. And if that's what mom and dad are experiencing, that's what baby gets as well. So when we're stuck in stress from day one, that means that the baby's nervous system is wired for fight or flight as well. The birth process then tends to add to that. When there's forceps, vacuum extraction, manual interventions, any sort of extra intervention in that birth and delivery process, there's going to be an increase in that fight or flight mode and usually a decrease in the brake pedal, a decrease in the calming side of it. The majority of that brake pedal, that growth and development part of your neurology comes from right up top. There's a nerve called the vagus nerve that is the brakes. It is the wellness, rest and digest and growth and development mode. And think about the birth process. What's the most vulnerable? Here, right? Baby's coming out through that birth canal, leading with the head. Even if everything goes perfectly, that's a lot of force and pressure in that brainstem region, let alone if we have those extra interventions, if there's pulling, turning, and twisting in that really fragile, sensitive region, there's going to be damage. There's going to be a almost shutting off or a turning down of that vagus nerve, that cranial nerve that runs all that, and an increase in that survival mode. What does that lead to? When we have those pregnancy and birth findings, it tends to lead to a newborn and a toddler who is struggling. The norm for those kids is colic, reflux, constipation, nursing and latching challenges. Those are kids that are not sleeping well. They struggle with tummy time. Really, every single early development milestone is rough when that is at its worst. And then when that gets a little bit older, when they get through some of those phases, the phrase that you'll hear from pediatricians is they'll grow out of the colic or grow out of the reflux. Guys, they don't grow out of it. They just grow into the next version of that same problem because now the kid's got ear infections. Now the kid's got a speech delay or a motor delay or some sort of other gut and immune system issue coming up because the same underlying dysregulation and stress, that same cracked foundation is still there, right? Because what do we go next, right? The foundation here is the nervous system. The foundation is that operating system that runs everything behind the scenes, but there's more to health, right? The next tier here is the motor system. The neuromotor system is movement. It is even communication, right? That's where you'll see speech therapy on there as well, because speech is both a neurological and motor process. You've got to be able to form the specific sounds, but you also got to decide what you want to say, and you've got to interpret and make sense of what somebody is saying to you to decide what you're going to say. So it's a really complex process, but it's here, right? It's that neuromotor system. That's going to be thrown off. You're not going to be able to make progress in that layer if you're stuck at the foundation. And then the next tier above that, the gut and the immune system. I love that Dr. Google, that Facebook groups, that even AI and your ChatGPT research is pointing people more in that direction these days. That is so much better than being stuck on medications, than, not addressing any diet stuff and living off of Cheetos and Mountain Dew. Working with the gut and the immune system and functional medicine and diet changes and detox is important. That stuff matters, but that's not the foundation, right? When we are doing that with a dysregulated nervous system, you're not really going to get anything out of it. You're putting a lot of time and energy and money into expensive supplements and making all these dietary changes, but your body can't process it. You can't break it down because you're living in fight or flight, because your kid is stuck in stress. Let alone it's going to be challenging. It's going to be hard to get that stuff into them when they have usually sensory issues that are going along with all these things, where textures are funky, and it's really a struggle in that framework too. Can't address those until you get the foundation. And then the top tier here is brain-based interventions. That is the psychiatric medications, that is counseling, ABA. Those are all great things as well. Maybe less of the psych meds. That's a different conversation. Those interventions can be really helpful for helping parents and kids change those behavioral patterns. But if you try to throw a sticker chart or reward system at a kid that is going from 0 to 100 at the drop of a hat, you're never going to make progress on that. We've got to help them regulate. We've got to address that foundational system first so that you can layer and build on top of it. And then you do need to, oftentimes, right? Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just need to address that foundation and everything else follows in line after that. But when you do, if you do need to make those interventions and changes, you're ready for it. Because what happens when we get that out of order, when you start with those second and third and fourth tiers without the foundation, now you're overloading the system, right? Think of it as maybe a power strip. You got way too many cords plugged in. Oh, what's the movie? We just got through Christmas. Someone's gonna make fun of me for forgetting this, but the Christmas Vacation. Oh my gosh, the Christmas movie where they're plugging so many different things into the same outlet, and the thing blows, right? That is what your kid's nervous system is. Or think of it as your browser when you've got 500 tabs open at the same time and the window just crashes. That's what their nervous system is doing when you were adding in these therapies and these interventions and these dietary changes and these detoxes on top of an unstable foundation and unstable system. It's going to reach that breaking point. It's going to blow the fuse. It's going to blow the breaker, and everything is going to shut down. And what breaks our heart and what crushes us is that parents feel guilt, or they feel blame, or they feel shame when their kid hits that point. And they feel like, oh, I'm not doing enough, or I should be doing more, I'm missing something. Guys, you're doing amazing. You are doing so much for your kid. You're supporting them in so many ways. You've just got to address that core foundation underlying issue and then build on top of it. Keep working at that. Get that stability. And then, yes, there is a role for adding in, but it's got to be done in the right sequence. It's got to be done in the right order once we find some stability and a good starting point for that. So, parents, I hope that helps both in understanding why you're at the place that you are, and also in maybe an exhale or a pat on the back and realizing you are doing enough and you don't need to add in something else. You need to back off some of those things to go forward. And that's the story that I mentioned earlier is that's exactly what one of our families did. You know, they had a young kiddo, kind of early school age that was doing a lot. These are amazing, on top of it, highly intelligent parents, and they were doing all the therapies, all the supports, all the things for this kiddo, and it was helpful. There had been progress, but man, there were some gaps still. There were some struggle points. When we first met, when we talked about neurology, when we talked about this exact conversation, we realized we've got to scale back to go forward. We had to drop some of the therapies. We had to drop PT, maybe vision therapy or occupational therapy to be able to say we have the bandwidth neurologically to be able to heal and to make progress. After we did that, after his body was able to reset internally, the downstream stuff, the higher levels weren't really relevant anymore. Yeah, there was a few things here and there he needed to add back in and work on, but things were at a much, much better place overall health-wise because we went backwards to go forward. So don't feel like you have to do more, mom and dad. We got to backtrack. And that's what neurologically focused chiropractic is all about. If this is making so much sense to you, but you're like, well, what the heck is Thrive doing talking about this? What does it have to do with chiropractic? That is our role. That is what that PX Docs nervous system focused care is geared towards. It's unwinding neurology. It's unwinding that foundational operating system so that you can build upon it with other layers. Our scanning technology lets us measure that. We get to the bottom of what's going on in your nervous system, what's going on from that neuroregulation perspective, and what do we need to do to get them out of that. So we do 3 different scans that's objectively measuring and tracking how is their nervous system functioning, and then we put together an individualized game plan to get them out of it, to get them heading in the right direction and healing again. If that's not a part of your kid's story yet, please reach out. We are here to help. We need to get your kids scanned and unlocked to help them reach those fuller levels. And if you're kind of like me and you like the details and you're a science nerd and you want to dig into this more, please either join us at the next Perfect Storm workshop you see coming up, or we'll send you one of the previous webinar versions we've done. Man, that is where we're going to get into the details, into the weeds of how much understanding there really is going on about how the nervous system is foundational for everything else. So join us if you're watching this video here this week in January. Thursday night, January 29th at the Sports Grill is the next event. We'd love to have you there and just really start that relationship off right to get you all the answers that you need so you can have the hope for healing and the help that your kid needs. So we're here to help. Can't wait to meet you soon and help your family thrive.